Welcome to Chicago Bears 360, keeping it a buck with Coach T.
Contra.
Life like chess, move to pieces, you know I roll in silence. On the road to them Benjis, I fill my teeth with diamonds. I'm high as fuck in the sky, you would've thought I'm pilot. I'm from Chicago, it get ugly, fill the streets with violence. Life like chess, move to pieces, you know I roll in silence.
Past, present, future. We bear down.
Well, welcome to the live. It's your boy, Coach T. Welcome and thanks for joining us. Trying to get some of this technical stuff worked out right here. But welcome to the channel. For many of you, you're subscribers. At this point, I have about 77 subscribers, so this will be my first live show. Many of you have joined us simply off of the tape and the breakdowns, the film breakdowns throughout the season. But I thought I would expand the channel to this format where I would go live and start doing more live on camera stuff during the off season and then take that into the season. So again, welcome to the live. If you like the commentary, if you like the analysis, do me a favor, hit like, also hit the subscribe button, and then turn on those notifications so you can keep up. And this is going to be a unique kind of presentation of what I'm going to do in these coming weeks as we build up. I'm going to break it down from the top to the bottom of Bears football. I'm going to talk about the reconstruction of the front office, the restructuring of the front office, the GM hires, the head coach hires. And then I'm actually going to get on Saturdays, mainly, I'm going to get into the film breakdowns and add film to these live commentaries and show you what we can expect in the coming weeks with the new head coaches, concepts and his philosophies. I'm going to break down Coach Flu's defense in Indianapolis, our transition from a 3-4 defense to a 4-3 defense, and how our current players fit into those schemes and potentially where some of the gaps can be, would be prior to the draft and where the Bears will be looking to draft. I'm also going to do that on the offensive end of the ball, which is the area which I specialize in, but I know defense too. So I'm going to break down Coach Getsy's offense, hit a lot of his philosophies and concepts. I've done some research on his background. I understand, he's a believer in the Kyle Shanahan gap power concepts. Also, he's a student of Joe Morgan, who is one of the gurus of the zone read concepts and RPO concepts. And then he's going to bring in, I believe, some of the philosophies from Green Bay, the passing concepts. So I'm going to break those down over the next couple weeks. I'm going to break down the defensive philosophies, show you some films and breakdowns on what they expect, how our players plug into that. I'm going to show you some of the offensive stuff, how our players break into those philosophy over the next 3 or 4 weeks leading up into the draft. So you'll go into the draft, and perhaps on this live, perhaps on our show, we can do a show on a kind of a draft, a mock draft on this show based off of what we determine over the next couple of weeks, over the next several weeks, what the gaps are in this Bears team. So I think that would be fun. I think that's going to be a fun format if we break it down like that. So I hope y'all stay tuned. Again, if you like the analysis, if you want to see something like that, and again, I'm breaking this down from a coach's perspective. Coach T is just not in my name. I fail to mention this, and I don't really throw it out there a lot, but I coach high school football at the high school level in Florida and Georgia, off and on for the past 10 years. I'm fortunate enough to have about 3 NFL players currently in the league, and I'm proud of that. I miss coaching. However, I'm not coaching right now, and this gives me an outlet. So we're going to break this football down from a coach's perspective, and I'm going to give you a coach's perspective and a locker room perspective. So if you ever want to be educated about the X's and O's of football and what certain terminology means and certain concepts mean and so on and so forth, this is the Bears channel for you. Again, I may not have the most followers, but the intentions is to have the smartest followers, smartest Bears followers, and the smartest group of followers on the channel. So do me a favor, again, hit that like, hit the subscribe, hit the notification bell so you'll know when I'm live and you can stay abreast. And we're going to build on this thing, right? We're going to break it down from the front office structure all the way to the field. And once we get on the field, we're going to build and we're going to dissect the concepts on both offense and defense so you'll know. So each video will kind of build upon the other. So if you miss one week, do me a favor, go back and watch the previous week, check the date, and go back and watch the previous week to catch yourself up so you'll know what's going on. So that's enough of that. Let's get into it. I hope people join the live. If you don't join the live, again, catch it on the replay. Again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. So let's get into it. Again, I'm excited for this format. This is all new for me.
Welcome to Chicago Bears
technology. So if I mess up something like I just did, don't charge it to my heart, not my head. I'm just figuring it all out. So let's get into it. Let's talk about it. Before we get into talking about our GM, let's talk about, what the Bears did in form of a restructure, because I think a lot of it was overlooked by a lot of fans, right? A lot of complaining, a lot of bitching and griping about, George McCaskey and Ted Phillips, rightfully so in some cases, but I'll talk to you about this, right? We got to applaud the front office for the restructuring of the front office. The changes they made, I think, were beneficial in helping what I believe is exactly what the Chicago Bears need. A lot of the changes they made was to go from, the big change that they made was to go from a two-man system where George and Ted pretty much decided kind of what happens in the front office or what decisions was made as far as GM and coaching hire, to forming a committee. So George, Ted, they added Bill Polian, Tanisha Wade, and Soup Campbell to form a 5-person committee to not only add diversity to the group, but also to what's going on, Matt? To add diversity to the group, but also to bring about different and varying opinions as to the various football operations and things that happen around the organization, right? So George admittedly, he wasn't a football guy, and a lot of us have been screaming for a football guy in the front office. So George brought in Bill Polian, right, to add that experience from a GM's perspective, a Super Bowl winning GM's perspective, but also he added Tanisha Wade, who gives us more of a fan perspective. She gets to understand kind of the fan experience. So she's the director of kind of the event. So she understands fan experience. And then Soup Campbell is in the locker room. So he's able to kind of understand from a player's perspective and how things are playing over or getting over with the players, right? And I think that's very important. And of course, Ted handles finances. That's his kind of spiel, if you will. That's his kind of niche, if you will. So leave him over there, let him do that thing, and then George can grow as an owner. So I think overall, the growth is a good thing. The expansion and the restructuring of the staff was a good thing. But what I want to focus on is how that's going to play out, I think, and how that's going to translate to the football field. How I believe the restructuring and how they went about hiring a GM and restructuring, how that's going to translate to the football field. So for the longest time, one of the things I said that the Bears lack is a system, right? An infrastructure for winning, right? They've in the past never built an infrastructure for winning. And what they did was they built football players, football teams, right? Offense and defense and special teams, but they never developed kind of the infrastructure for winning. And the infrastructure for winning kind of acts as a funnel, if you will, right? So picture a funnel, and if you want, all you want to do is funnel out wins, you have to develop an infrastructure for winning. And I think that's one of the things the good franchises, the great franchises like New England does, right? And I'll give you an example of that, right? In the offseason, this past offseason, Sean McVay said something as a coach, and coaches are always listening to coach speak, right? Sean McVay said something that I thought was really impressive, right? Sean McVay said that only about 6 players on each side of the ball can traverse NFL concepts or systems, right? And I want to say that again for emphasis. Sean McVay made an interesting quote. He said only about 6 players from each side of the ball can traverse NFL concepts or systems. So if you think about it, there's 11 players on offense, 11 players on defense. And Sean is saying only 6 of those players, right? And I'm expanding it. He said 6 players on any team. But for the sake of argument, let's say 6 players on each side of the ball, right? That leaves 5 guys. And actually what Sean said, now that I think about it, what Sean said lines up with what Bill Polian actually said in an article not too long ago. He said you have about 10 to 12 dudes on each team, right? 10 to 12 dudes on each team. And he said that we're about 6 or 8 right now, at about 6 right now, 6 to 8. But Sean was saying that only 6 guys on each side of the ball can traverse systems, right? So that leaves about 5 guys on each side of the ball who are just system players. They're guys that you draft for a specific job, right? And that's one of the things I think New England has done and made them a championship franchise, right? They developed the infrastructure or a system, right? And they have their core. Let's call it 5 or 6 guys on each side of the ball. So they had their core 5 guys on offense, their core 5 guys on defense, right? Which are their mainstays on the football team. And then they draft other guys, or they sign free agent guys to fulfill a specific role on that offense or that defense, right? And that's developing an infrastructure from the front office all the way down to the field. So what happens is you'll bring on somebody, and I think I'll say this. I think that's what's going to make this Bears team different and how they're going to be different in the future, because we started developing an infrastructure. We restructured, but we're starting to develop an infrastructure, and we're still in the building phases, but we have a GM now that's going to emphasize he's going to line up and draft and sign players that line up with the coaching philosophy of our head coach, our offensive coordinator, and our defensive coordinator, right? So let's bring him on and let's talk about it. So as you know, the Bears just recently hired Ryan Poles to be the new GM, and I believe this is a good hire. And when I start talking about that infrastructure, this is exactly what we need in our infrastructure as an organization. Somebody like Ryan Poles, who's a former D1 offensive lineman to boot, right? So he knows what it takes, right? You don't get to that level, right? You don't get to the level of playing Division I football and you don't know what it takes. And then he goes on to be unrestricted free agent signee by the Bears sometime later. So he did have some exposure to the NFL and understand, again, what it takes, right? And this is what I'll say about what makes signing an offensive lineman special. What makes signing an offensive lineman special is, the fact that, play begins in the trenches. A lot of people think, the skill position players and so on and so forth, that's where it's at. All football starts, especially offensive football, starts in the trenches. But overall, deep football in general starts in the trenches, right? So when I'm drafting up a player, when I'm drafting up an offensive concept, I'll tell you how I was taught, how I was trained. Anytime my mentor, I wanted to kind of come up with a play or something like that, or I thought I had a good play, my mentors taught me to, the first question I had to answer was, how are you going to block it? How are you going to block it? And I had to answer that question before I could draw up any kind of quarterback motion, wide receiver route combinations. I had to understand the personnel I had, right, on the football team and understand where the strengths and weaknesses were on that offensive line, right? Because a lot of fans think with offensive football, because you have 5 guys on the front end, or 5 guys up front, that you block 100% of the plays with 5 guys, right? That's not how you block plays, right? You have to evaluate what your strengths and weaknesses are on the offensive line and understand where you may need help, right? So in general, you understand, which of those 5 guys are the weakest, right? And then when you're scouting your opponent week to week, you determine, hey, in these situations, we can win with 5-man protection. We can win 5 versus 5, or we're going to have to keep additional bodies in to help with the protection scheme or with the protection plan, right? So to all my fans out there that believe, just because you got 5 guys up there and you believe that they're going 5-on-5 against defenses or 5-on-4, that's not the case. You only block 5-man protection in most cases. You only block that about 5 to 10% of the plays in a given game, depending on your offensive line. Now, if you have 5 studs up there, and some teams you'll see the Super Bowl caliber teams, sometimes they'll have 5 guys that could literally block 1-on-1 or 5-on-4 the majority of the game. But in most cases, you're going to be blocking 5-man protection about 5 to 10% of the time. So again, this is a benefit of having somebody like Ryan Poles that played the position, right? He knows how to identify, along with the scouting department, identify guys that studs that could potentially, block 5-man protection, right? And ideally, that's what you want. You want to draft guys or sign guys that can win one-on-ones, because it is a numbers game, right? The more bodies that I have to keep in protection, there's less bodies that I can get into the route combinations, right? So say I have to keep a tight end in, right? I can't have a tight end. If I have a tight end in blocking, then most of the time, if I'm going to have him in the whole time blocking, then he can't get involved with the route combination and add another body to threaten the defensive backs and linebackers, right? Same thing with the running back. If I keep a running back in the entire play, he can't get out and become a threat to the defensive backfield, the linebackers, corners, and safeties, and give them another body to worry about. So it becomes a numbers game, right? So the less bodies you use in the protection scheme, the more bodies you have to threaten the pass concepts, right? The pass defense, right? So again, having somebody like Ryan Pace to help identify guys that can win one-on-one battles or against five against 4 battles, then that's going to help our franchise in the long run. And I like to think about it this way: your offense is a vehicle, right? If your offense were a vehicle, the offensive line is the engine, right? So some teams got a V12, some teams got a V8, some teams got a V6, some teams got a 4-banger, and some teams are barely making it. And I think we've experienced a lot of barely making it in terms of offensive line play over the last few years. And we want to get that 4-banger to be a V8, right? We want a V12. We want to be able, a V12 offensive line is one that can win one-on-one battles in pass protection and run block, right? To the degree that the defense knows where we're running the ball and they simply can't stop it, right? That's a V12 offensive line, one that can run block at will, run down any gap, any concept, and pass protect 5 versus 4, or with just simply 5-man protection at will without having to add additional bodies. But we have to close the gap on that, and I believe Ryan is the person to help us do that. So that's what I have to say about Ryan Poles. Let me know again in the comments. Let me know in the chat how y'all feel about Ryan Poles as a GM and his potential. Let me know what you think his strengths will be. What do you think? Let me know what you think his weaknesses may be. as a GM. I'll say this, he is a first-time GM, but I think he has Super Bowl experience, and he's gone through the ranks to help him kind of figure out the ropes. And what I like about what he said in his press conference is, you know what I'm saying, he has a team around him of people that can advise him, that he's taken advice from throughout the years to help fill in some of the gaps of the things that he doesn't know. Seems like a real humble guy, so I look forward to seeing what he does with this roster, right? Enough about Ryan Post, because we're already 22 minutes into it. So let's talk about our coaching hire. The person I like to call Coach Flu, Coach Matt Eberflus. So we traded one Matt and Ryan. Of course, the going joke is we traded one Matt and Ryan for another Matt and Ryan. But I think this is going to be a totally different outcome with Coach Flu. I enjoy actually the first press conference. Again, being a coach, I understand coach speak. I understand the talk. While a lot of the media made fun of, Coach Eberflus using acronyms and all this other stuff, I'm finna let you into the locker room a little bit. Any locker room. Coach, football is a hard game. And if you've coached the game, you understand there's many nuances to the game of football, right? So there's so many things to remember. Your assignments, plays, coverages, like you have to remember a lot of stuff. So anytime a coach can make your assignments simple, that makes you a better leader of men, makes you a better coach. So again, while, the use of acronyms didn't translate with a lot of the players, a lot of the media, I knew exactly what Coach Flu was saying by using a lot of acronyms, and great leaders do it. I did it when I was in the military. I still remember the 14 leadership traits when I was in the Marine Corps. I still remember 5-paragraph order because they gave us acronyms to help us remember stuff, to make it easy. Because what's more important, right? Me looking good or me being able to remember what the expectations are as a player. So if HITS is this acronym to remind defensive players what their tasks are in a particular season or what their fundamental responsibilities are, then that's a sign of a good leader for me, right? To me, my experience as leaders, the great coaches, even in my military experience, the great leaders use acronyms, again, as a teaching tool, because the great coaches are actually teachers at heart. It's a teaching profession, right? So for you to be able to break things down in details and help players become successful, that's what players want. So while it may not translate to the media, it's going to translate in the locker room, I'm telling you. Because if I have HITS up on the board and whatever that acronym means, right, and I'm measuring week to week, play by play, whatever that acronym means, if I don't meet the qualifications of that, then not only do I know, right? First, I know what the expectations are. Then if I don't meet those expectations, and then if Coach Flu does something like post that on some kind of board where all the players have to, where all the players can see one another's grades, then that's going to create an atmosphere, kind of peer pressure, and help you to perform at a higher level, to take your game to another level. So I like that. I like the fact that Coach Flu uses acronyms. I like the fact that he used a word that I like and I use in my profession even now, is everything is measurable, right? I don't know how much you may know about SMART goals, but one of the acronyms they use in most environments about goal setting is SMART. Your goals need to be specific, and the second one is measurable, right? So the sign of a good leader is they set specific goals, they set measurable goals, they set attainable goals, they set repeatable goals, and the last T I always forget. So again, charge it to my head, not to my heart. But that's a sign of a good leader or a good leader in the making. Again, I'm not saying it's going to be instant success, but it's a sign that we may be on the right path with Coach Flu. So I like that about him. So let's get and talk about some football. Let's talk about some concepts. Notice I'm going to use the word concepts and not scheme. Just a personal pet peeve of mine. I don't like the word scheme. It's too general. Coaches don't talk about scheme. Matter of fact, I inboxed my mentor prior to this live, and I said, bro, you ever use the word scheme? I'm checking myself. So Coach T even check himself. He said, bro, never. He said, that's fan talk. So listen, we're going to talk about the concepts, a little bit about Coach Flu's concept. Remember I said, I'm going to get into that in the coming weeks. I'm going to break down the film on this live. I'm going to add videos to the live where I break down what you can expect from Coach Flu, from Coach Getsy's offense, from Coach Flu's defense, right? Coach Williams' defense. Let me apologize. Coach Williams is the defense coordinator. But what you can expect. So, yeah, Coach Flu's bringing over 4-3 defense, going away from the 3-4 that we've run in the past. And, again, I'm going to build up. I'm going to break it down over the next few weeks, what that means to Chicago Bears, what that looks like. I'm going to pull in some Indianapolis Colts game footage and let you know how our current players project to those different positions in the 4-3 defense. And again, let you know where the holes may be in that defense and where we potentially may draft going up. So I'll break that down to you. But I like the hire. It seems like, again, we have a good to great leader in the making. As long as he sticks to his principles and hold himself accountable to those core principles that he's already established, I think he's going to grow this team and be the leader that they need. And again, I'll say this too. One thing I like about what Coach Flu said is he's going to be the CEO of the team. He's not looking to call defensive plays, but he's going to coach the coaches, which, again, a good head coach does. You want to coach your coaches. You want to hold your coaches accountable to the standard, right? You want to set – this is all goes back to what I said about establishing an infrastructure, right? There has to be order top to bottom, and there has to be communication. So you want to set the precedence for your coaches and the expectations for your coaches. You want to measure your coaches' performance, right? If they have 2 and 3 guys are not hitting your acronyms, your goals each week, you got to hold that coach accountable so that coach can hold the player accountable, right? If somebody needs to lose their job at a granular level, so what? Assistant coach needs to get fired, then, hey, it's either, look, this is what one of the things we say in business. If somebody's not doing their job, either it's a people problem, right? It's a process problem, which is how I'm coaching them and how I'm translating the information, right? It's either a people problem, a process problem, right? Or they don't have I got the wrong product. The product is the scheme, right? So either he's a bad fit for the scheme, he don't have the skill set, or it's the person. But you got to be able to break that down and isolate it and identify so you can, again, turn back and tell the head coach. And so the head coach can know what the holes are on his football team. And either you scheme, right? Now you start talking scheme. Now you start scheming to cover up those weaknesses in your defense, right? That's the scheme is how you use the personnel, right? So let's clear that up. But now you scheme to cover up the holes in your defense, right? You make weaknesses strengths by your scheme, right? Or you call defenses that stay away from it. And I'm going to get into this because I really want to get into that Thomas Graham tweets that's been going out that's become a pet peeve of mine, but we're going to talk about that later. Listen, but schemes are how you help cover up the holes. So again, this is all why being specific and measurable is important, and having an infrastructure is important. I think, again, we're on the right path with Coach Flu. So I beat that dead horse to death. But again, I'm gonna add the film to it, and we're gonna break it down, and we're gonna talk about it in the coming weeks. I just wanted to get used to this whole live presentation, get used to the technology, get used to the kind of how it flows, and build on it week to week. So I'm setting my own system while I'm talking about setting systems. So the next person we're going to talk about, again, and we're going to get into is our offensive coordinator hire from Green Bay, Coach Luke Getsy. Let's hope he's the great Getsy, and he can bring some fire to this offense. And one of the things I'll say about Coach Gessie, and what I think I'm hearing, some of the things that I'm hearing from the ground about his background is he was hired because he's a believer in the Kyle Shanahan concepts, right? The Kyle Shanahan run concepts specifically, right? He was hired because he's a believer, a student of the Kyle Shanahan run concepts. And anybody that knows me or follows me on Twitter knows how much of a bigger fan I am of Kyle Shanahan's run concepts. And if that's the case, and let it be known if you hear anything different on social media, because I'm a Kyle Shanahan nerd, that's my coach crush. Listen, if that's the case, what you should expect from this running game is you should expect a gap or power philosophy over a zone concept, right? Now, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, maybe not what you see, but in my opinion, a gap power concept is a meat and potatoes of your run game, right? Something that Coach Nagy refused to run. He actually said it in the presser a couple years ago that he didn't come to run the power I. That's what he meant. Power gap philosophy is what many talk about when they talk about San Francisco's offense being physical. That's the part that they're talking about. The gap power is a very aggressive run game philosophy. It's pulling guards, it's pulling tackles, it's pulling tight ends, right? It's even pulling wide receivers up in gaps and blindside blocking. Can't talk. Blindside blocks. What you're doing is you're shifting, and I'm gonna break this down in the coming weeks. What you're doing is actually shifting numbers from one side of the line of scrimmage to the other side to give you a numbers advantage. Because remember, football is played with 11 men, so there's always going to be an odd and even number on each side of the field, and the defense is going to shape their defense to the strength of the formation. So say if I lined up in a pro right formation, which is the defensive left, the defense is left. The defense is going to shade to their left and my right because that's the strength of my formation. That's why I have six bodies at, right? They're going to shade. They always have to get a line. The defense always has to get a line. So what you're going to do is, what you have to do as an offensive coordinator is you have to figure out in the run game, either you're going to go right at them or you can figure out a way to create a numbers mismatch where you create more blockers on one side of the line of scrimmage away from the strength or to the strength, right? So you pull guards, you pull tackles, you pull tight ends to get you a numbers advantage and get more blockers on the opposite side of the strength of the defense so you can have a successful run play. That's gap. That's power, right? In its core, right? So if you hear somebody talking about, somebody's Coach Gessie is running a Kyle Shanahan system and it's going to be and it's Kyle Shanahan's Kyle Shanahan's system and it's zone blocking, it's zone run game. They don't know what they're talking about. I'm telling you off the bat. I'm telling you with 100% confidence because I study Kyle Shanahan. I'm telling you, not trying to be arrogant or nothing like that, but that's my guy. So if they talking about it's Kyle Shanahan and he running zone, inside, outside zone primarily as the meat and potatoes of that offense, they don't know what they're talking about. Tell them to come and tune into the lives and learn something because I'm finna teach them. Again, I'm gonna break down the film and show you what a Kyle Shanahan power gap concept or run game looks like, right? So ideally for me, what I think the Bears or what I think a good offense consists of in his run game, you put in as much stuff as you can. So you want a strong gap power run game. That means you want to be able to run power left and right. You want to be able to run counter, right? The counter is the answer to power. So if you run power and you gashing the defense with power, you turn around and run counter. Counter is the answer to power. So the defense makes the adjustment, and then you start running counter. And the thing about a gap power concept is you have many answers. You have a lot of answers. You have a lot of answers in your library as an offensive coordinator. So as the defense adjusts throughout the game, you can go to your next answer. I'm afraid that zone, inside and outside zone, doesn't have that many answers. You can go outside zone, inside zone. Once you start gassing the defense, they're going to put numbers over there to adjust. And then what do? Then you can just go straight to play action, right? Which is cool and all, but I would like to have as many answers as possible. So why would I just go simply with inside, outside zone and play action? Matt Nagy, where I could go power, counter, I can go quick toss, I can go wham, I can go smash, I can go all kinds of stuff. I can go Z-fly sweep. I can do a lot of things, different things out of power concepts and then go run your play action. But we're going to get into that. Like I said, you're going to get into that. So if you got any questions about that, take out that time. And while you think about it, either write them down or put them in the chat. I'm going to come back and answer your questions about the different philosophies, the different concepts. Anything you want to know, I'll answer your chats as they come up throughout the week. Long as while we're in between shows, I'll answer your questions. Put them in the chat. There's no dumb questions. If you're learning the X's and O's, there's no dumb questions. I guarantee you there's many people out there that don't know the answers to these questions. So don't feel bad. Go in there and do it. So that's what I believe about Coach Getsy. He's going to run, if he's, like I said, if he's the guy that I want him to be, he's going to run power gap. He's going to run. Now watch how I feel about zone, inside and outside zone run concepts. Think of it this way. Power and gap philosophies, power and gap concepts are like the meat and potatoes you put on your plates. They're your meat, your potatoes, and your vegetables, right? That's power. That's power gap. Now, where you add zone concepts, inside and outside zone, I look at them as like condiments, right? They're like ketchup and mustard, you know what I'm saying? Salt and pepper, things that you put on your offensive plate to make it, the seasoning, to make it taste a little bit better. You want to give the defense as many looks as possible, right? So you might come out and run a sweep, a toss left, toss right. You might come out and run a zone, outside zone, inside zone, right? Just to get the defense running, right? Get them gassed a little bit, and then you come back and hit them in the mouth with gap and power, right? Or you could do it vice versa. You come out and hit them with gap and power, right? Coming right down their throat, and then you come back and hit them with zone left and right, outside zone, inside zone to get the defense running vertically, right? And then hit them with some tosses to get the defensive line tired. As many answers as possible, right? So that's how I view inside and outside zone. And off of both, you can run play action. Off of both concepts, you can run play action. So you set things up with those various plays, whatever you're successful at, then you come back with a play action off of those. After you've exhausted all your answers, you come back with some play action off of that. And then I'm going to also get into the passing concepts, the obvious passing downs. One of the things I've heard is Getsy is great at the screen game. You're going to maybe see some hitches, quick hitches. You're going to see some what I like I like one of the offensive concepts I like versus trips is a hitch wheel seam. You're going to see offensive passing concepts that take advantage of the numbers. As long as we can block the concepts, we'll run it. So I've heard he likes to do a lot of that stuff. And pardon me if I'm being long-winded about offensive football, but that's just what I'm passionate about. That's what I've coached, and I always like discussing and talking about the various different offensive philosophies that the various coaches have. So again, let's recap. We're expecting this from Coach Getsy. We're expecting to see power gap concept, power football, a la San Francisco's Kyle Shanahan. And then we're going to see some ketchup and mustard, some zone, inside, outside zone, just to keep things mixed up. Toss with that. I would put toss with zone concepts because you kind of block them the same way. And notice what I'm saying, right? I'm thinking about the blocking as I group my plays together. So you'll block a toss, quick toss left, quick toss right. the same way you block an inside-outside zone. It's just body on body, you being quick as an offensive lineman. You get to the perimeter and you do your thing, right? So you're going to see power gap. You're going to see inside-outside zone. You're going to see play action off of that. You're going to see a good screen game left and right, to take advantage of the numbers, tunnels, and bubbles, screens, right? You'll see concepts and setups off of the screen like a hitch wheel seam, right? So if I'm going trips left or trips right, the first guy runs a hitch where he just spots up like he's catching a quick screen. One guy runs a wheel route, which is kind of to take the inside safeties away, and the other guy takes and runs a seam to take the inside safeties away. The other guy runs a wheel to create a conflict between the corner and the safety and get a guy open. I'm going to break all that down. Listen, let's take a pause right here. Do me a favor. If you like what you're hearing, do me a favor. Comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to turn on that notification bell so you can keep up with me, so you can go along on this journey with me as we break down Bears football, what you're going to see. Like I said, I'm just talking right now. I'm not even getting into the film work. Wait until we get into film work. And if you want to see how I break down film work, go back to some of the old videos and I'll show you. And it's going to get better because I got better equipment, I got better lighting, and I'm going to be live when I describe some of this. So you'll be able to ask questions on the live so I can clear up a lot of these concepts and philosophies for you, right? So that's Coach Getsy. I've been long-winded about that because I like offensive football. And then let's get to our last hire, and we're going to talk about Coach Alan Williams. It's just cut and simple for me. I believe Coach Williams is a student of Coach Flew in that 4-3 defense, the Tampa 2 defense. I'm going to break down what a Tampa 2 defense is. Probably Saturday. I'm going to probably get into the offensive stuff first. No, I'll start with defense. I'll break down the defensive philosophies first. I'll show you what a 4-3 defense is, and again, how our current personnel fits into that system, right? And then we'll get into some of the nuances of the scheme and how we can use certain personnel currently within the 4-3. We'll talk about what holes we have to plug first, right? And then we'll talk about the nuances and how we could use certain personnel in the various schemes in there and make that defense a dynamic defense. It's going to take some time to build, but I think if we make certain moves, we may have some early success in this offense. So Coach Alan Williams, again, the new defensive coordinator, Chicago Bears, he's going to bring over a lot of those Tampa 2 concepts. I'm going to break that down on Saturday. So join me at Saturday. It's going to be 12 Eastern Time, 11 Central. 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 Central. I'm bringing the film work. I'm bringing the film work to the Saturday lives, right? That gives me a couple days to put it together, put some commentary, some highlights on it, and package it all pretty for y'all so y'all can see it, right? So, again, this is a labor of love, man. I love the Chicago Bears. I've been a fan since 1984. My dad raised me on the Bears. We're a Bears family. So that's where it goes with that, man. So, again, it's a labor of love. Join us on the Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time on Wednesday. And then we come back again on Saturdays where I do the actual film breakdowns on Saturdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to do 11 a.m. Central Standard Times. Again, with those focuses, the focus of those lives are going to be in the film. I'm going to answer questions for people in the chat. I see you. I see my man Matt down there. Shout out to my man Matt. Thanks for being a loyal follower on Twitter. I acknowledge you, my brother. I'm still learning a lot of this technology, so shout out to you, Matt. And I'll make sure to shout you out on Twitter as well. So listen, so the last part of this live tonight, I'm going to talk about something that get into a little bit of fun, just something I wanted to do, to have some fun with all the craziness out there on social media. all the crazy things that I see on social media. And you're not going to see me really act up on social media except for just apart from having some fun with people, trolling a little bit. But I want to introduce the Drunk Uncle segment to the show. And the Drunk Uncle is going to basically be those social media posts, those people that post things on social media, those bad takes on social media that's off base, that really, I'm going to focus on the X's and O's stuff, right? I'm going to focus the takes that I see that are really about X's and O's that's off base. We're gonna give them the Drunk Uncle Award of the week. I may do 2 in 1 week. It depends on how crazy it gets out there, right? So that's gonna be the last segment of the show. We're gonna give 1 tweet, 1 post or something. We're gonna give it the Drunk Uncle Award of the week. I might repost this the live on Twitter and tag the person just so they know they got the Drunk Uncle Award for that week. I don't care. They don't pay my bills. So that's how that's gonna go. So let's get ready for the Drunk Uncle segment. Again, I'm gonna take out the time and say, listen, if you have any questions for me, anything's on my opinion. I don't know anything about, what's gonna be what, but if you want to talk X's and O's, I'm a nerd for it. I'm willing to talk X's and O's all day long. So there you go. That's pretty much the show for tonight. I want to thank everybody for joining me with just under 47 minutes. I hit close to my target of 45 minutes, and I want to keep it to about 45 minutes to shows. But thank you for joining or watching the very first Chicago Bears 360 with Coach T. Look forward to seeing y'all on Wednesday, 12 Eastern, 11 a.m. Central. And listen, until next time, we out. Peace.